let's jump into this. Ladies and gentlemen, Damion Schubert.
Hello.
Hello.
So, do you think the gap between casual and dedicated crafters will be smaller than in other MMOs? Can you tell us how they are rewarded, the dedicated ones, I mean?
Do we think that the gap between the casual and the hardcore crafters will be small in other MMOs? I think that we're going to strive to find a good balance. I mean, we actually have people on our team who come from making the crafting games, and while we're not the full-on crafting game, that's not really what the mission statement of this game was. We also know what a crafting game can add, and what hardcore dedicated crafters can actually add to your community. So I would say the opposite. We've tried to make it so that hardcore crafters do bring something to the server that they're on that casual crafters can't. What we want is the casual crafter is mostly interested in crafting for himself and crafting for his companion characters, but other than that, he's not really doing much other than that. And the dedicated crafters, they have access through special means we haven't talked about yet in order to pursue recipes that are very rare on their entire server. We actually think it's good and exciting and interesting to be the only guy on a shard that can make these kind of pans. One of the things that's always bothered me about a lot of the games is that crafters tend to become guild pets, right? And that was certainly the case for me in several of the games I've played, is once you've had your blacksmith inside of your guild and he can make everything, nobody bothered to even get him resources or give him money for his trouble, because he could make everything that every other blacksmith on the server could make. We really wanted it so that crafters were good enough that you would break your guild boundaries in order to get what you wanted from time to time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy from Carillion Run Radio.
Right.
I'm very short. I have a question about gear. I hope that you can answer this. We've heard that, gear, dark points could affect, if you have a dark side character, there's certain gear that you might be able to wear, or a light side character, there might be gear that you can wear. I'm concerned about the neutral character. Is this a question for you? Is there going to be is there an advantage or a disadvantage to maybe not playing dark, hard, light?
I'm thinking about what I can say.
Okay.
So the long and the short of it is that we haven't talked a lot about dark side, light side rewards yet, because that is something that we're still iterating on in every single playtest that we do. What we did in this current playtest is different than what's in the last playtest. In the playtest right now, we do have dark side and light side armor that you can get both through drops and from a vendor. We have plans at some point to also bring in rewards for being gray, but it will be pretty strictly gray, which is to say it will be better to be pure gray than it will be to be light side 2 versus, light side 5 is maxed out light side, for example. So basically, you're going to have to choose one of the three if you want access to these gear spigots and or whatever other benefits that we give you. That being said, right now, the gray stuff isn't done in the beta, and we're looking to get it in. It'll probably get in, but...
Okay, good, great. Thank you very much.
Hi. Flashpoints will be redoable. Do they reset completely? And will it be possible to sort of farming of light and dark side points if you redo the flashpoint?
The question is, will flashpoints be redoable? And can you use those in order to farm for rewards like light side, dark side?
Yeah.
The answer to question A is probably, and the answer to question B is probably. The interesting thing about our game in terms of the light side, dark side stuff in particular is we have to have a lot more give in our light side, dark side system than a Mass Effect or a Knights of the Old Republic, because we don't have a reload button, right? We don't have the, oh crap, I accidentally got dark side my whole character's destroyed through this game. And we have a much longer game path than these single-player games do as well. So while we try to make sure that these moments in conversation, they feel big, they feel epic, you actually, I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, your whole screen goes red when you make a dark side decision, so it feels like you have an impact. It's really important that we give you ways to correct those decisions, and the flashpoints is one way that happens, and the missions, in particular diplomacy, is the fastest way in the beta right now, is the other way to sort of correct those decisions and pursue what you want. And it seems to be playing pretty well. One of the things that I will say that is a surprise is that it is really cool and a lot of fun, and it's not something we were expecting, to play with people who are of the other side. So, I'm currently a dark side Jedi Knight running with 2 light sides in the beta right now, and every conversation is much more interesting than last time when we were all playing the same side, because it's all like, oh yeah, we're going to kill the babies, we're going to kill, and then we do it, but they get to see the other side, especially when it's replayable, right? And so they get to see all of the content, and that's very exciting and interesting to them as well. It plays really good. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Dover from Darth Hater. We know that companions are going to be an integral part of the crew skill system. We also know that there's an affection rating that goes along with companions. You're like an affinity between the companions and the character. How is that, or can you tell us how that is currently affecting crew skills in regards to them doing their missions or their crafting?
It's a relatively minor thing. And I can explain why philosophically in a second. The second thing is what it affects. Again, this is in the build right now. We're still iterating on it. It affects fairly minorly the chance that you get a critical success on your missions and or your crafting. And it also affects more dramatically the time it takes to do that task. I mean, we try to do fairly significant times for our crafting stuff. It was one of the things that we thought it makes the system feel a lot more cool and tangible to actually, at the high end, you're sending them off for hours or days to make those really top end things. And sending off somebody of good affection will cut that down somewhat. Now, the problem is that you're earning affection better and faster with the person that you're adventuring with the most, right? Because they're actually there for the decisions that you're making. And as a general rule, the person that you're taking out with you the most is the guy that you like for whatever reason. He's either the most entertaining in story, or he's the best fit for how you want to play the game from a combat point of view. So we didn't want this to be like too overwhelming an advantage, and so it really is kind of a flavor thing right now. We might continue to tweak that, and it is actually something we might change the math on once the game has shipped and you have multiple companions at that stage. We do have other ways to increase affection other than conversation. We do have gifts in the game, much like Dragon Age gifts. They are being sure that you can't just use the gift system to completely bypass the conversation system is actually an interesting design challenge, but we have some ways to do that as well.
Awesome. Thanks.
No problem.
David from Tor Wars. Pretty simple question. Hopefully you can answer. We wanted to know if you're going to have multiplayer cantina games such as Pazak or Sabak or something like Swoop Racing. So simple a question. That hopefully it won't be just a yes or no. Or is there something you can tell us about sort of fun games you're playing on the side in the cantina with cards? And
I have next to my desk what I call the Wall of Crazy.
Okay.
And being the lead system designer, it is basically the backlog of features that we would like to put in before ship, shortly after ship, in the patch process, in the expansion pack, trying to figure out when and where we slot those in. I will tell you that everything you just said is on the Wall of Crazy. We have definite interest in getting those in. None of those things are in the game today, like in the beta that people are playing right now. extrapolate from that what you will. One of the things that you have to keep in mind, and the Cantina thread on the forums is a particularly entertaining one for me because it is a vast testament to how the average person who is not on this side of the wall doesn't understand how every time you have a feature and every time you debate a feature, it isn't should this feature go in or not. It is, okay, what do we cut to make room for this feature? What's the priority list for this feature? How does this feature shore up, compete with other features, et cetera, et cetera? And we do that with every single feature. But we all want to get, in particular, Pazak in at some point. I don't know when that is right now.
Great.
Is that fair, Steve?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fair.
Musco from Torcast. So pretty much everyone has asked similar questions about, it seems to be gearing, whether it's dark side light points, being able to craft gear. We know that inside of flashpoints you get commendations, which you can use to gain gear as well.
Right.
How do you deal with all of these systems and how they're going to affect player interaction between each other with things like ninja looting and the economy? Because, I mean, gearing is the big staple of an MMO, and obviously all these things are going to affect each other.
So the answer is that we have an itemization team, and one of the things that we pay real attention to is the hardest thing is, okay, we're a heavily gear-based game, and part of the reason is because gear is a very easy way for us to be sure that all of these systems that we're talking about, light side, dark side, social points, the tokens that you talked about, as well as random drops, heroic drops, et cetera, all have value to the player. What our itemization team does is not only create this gear, but they also try to distribute the gear so that we want to encourage you to play all the games, right? So we don't have 15 systems that all drop a chess piece that is valuable, because then if I play the dark side, light side game, I don't need to play the social points game at all, right? Instead, what we do is we try to make it so that each of the different games owns a slot for a tier, and we rotate those around to some degree. And if you choose not to play that game at all, as a general rule, your quest gear is kind of the backdrop gear for the whole game, right? Because especially your class quest, you pretty much have to play the class quest in order to progress your story along, yada, yada, yada. And so as long as you do your class quest, you're always going to have a good backbone set of gear. Right now in the build that we have, the best gear is dropped by the group content in the game. We're still sort of playing with that on, a patchly basis, though.
Thank you.
Hello, Marian, swtr.eu. My question is around, basically the economy system. Do you have any new kind of money sinks to keep up a healthy economy, that it doesn't blow up with numbers and modflation and everything? Maybe like it's in World of Warcraft right now, where you got really crazy numbers and everything really explodes.
Yes. The interesting thing about the economy is that it is very, very hard for us to tell whether, like, we have faucets and sinks inside the game right now, inside the build that we're running.
Can you mention some beside those you already mentioned, like mounts or paying for skills or so?
So actually a big one is the mission system is actually a kind of a faucet. But the real problem with faucets and drains and faucets is that it is really hard to force people to spend money, right? I mean, you could say things like, we're going to put in foozles, and these foozles all cost an obscene amount of money, and blah. Well, if the person never chooses to spend his money on foozles, you don't get that money out of the system. And for players for whom the game is to get 100 million credits, they won't do that, because to them that's the scorecard that they're trying to ring up. Right now, our economy feels okay inside of the cohort that we're running. Thank you. It's hard to tell, though, because first off, the economy that you have in the lower part of the game, which is really what we're testing, is completely different than the economy once you get to end game. The drains completely change. So in the leveling up game, the drains are mostly training, for example. Once you stop training, that drain stops to be so important. And then the other one is that inside the server right now, we just don't have the scale of population to really see how the people are going to interact with each other, to see how lively the auction house is going to be. And once we get more data from there, then we'll know more.
Okay, in addition to that, you are maybe planning something really big and awesome for people who really are farming or doing a lot of money, so that they can say, well, I got this awesome thing which has no actual use in the game, but which is really great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, Vincent from Swotor FR. So is there a stats on crafting resources? Can someone do a better same item as someone else, and can he crit on this item?
No. So one of the things that I don't like about that approach to crafting is how hard it is to actually, for example, surf the auction house and find the Mandalorian bracers that you want, because you have to actually mouse over every single Mandalorian bracer on the auction house in order to determine which one is the best one. So all of our special crafting is much more big than that. We really don't want the difference between good bracers and great bracers to be tiny, and you have to hunt and blah, blah, blah. Crafting, we have some things we haven't talked about here that are the whole making crafters special that hopefully we'll talk about soon, but it's not about finding special resources for the most part.
Hello, I'm a farmer from in-game, and from a designer's point of view, for you, what's the most challenging thing at the moment for you?
At this moment right now, the hardest thing for me is PvP, because I'm not very good at it. But we're really not prepared to talk about in-game right now. So
No, I meant from you as a designer.
Oh, as a designer.
So what's challenging there to do for designing things?
Yeah, I actually can't talk about what the answer to that is at all. But there are big things afoot that will consume most of my time between now and the end of the project. So there are significant challenges. Significant challenge. I like that.
Hello, I'm Mick from Swotor UK. My question is will there be a guild advancement system as in WoW and WoW? Same things?
So we have the big wall of crazy.
Yeah, the thing.
We probably will not have that on day one. We have ideas, and we know what and where we want to go with it. But yeah, I want to stress, big wall of crazy.
That's on there.
The thing is that, I'm sorry to say this, but I know most of the stuff that people come up with on the forums or whatever else, these guys know about. It's somewhere in a note somewhere.
It's not. It's oftentimes not even a note, right? Like in many of the cases, we have fully fledged design documents for things that we want to do. I am in no way implying that this is or is not one of those things, but right now, the most important thing to us is, we want to get this game into your hands, right? We really want you guys to see the fruits of our labor, to play the game. It's really good, guys. I don't know how you guys spent your Saturday. I spent my Saturday playing the game and having a blast doing it. But, one of the things about massively multiplayer games is that you're really talking about a genre with an infinite possible feature set list, right? Because you're talking about a genre whose goal is to mimic real life. And so any feature you can imagine that you can do in real life, somebody's going to come up and say, hey, somebody should try to jam this into the game as well. So.
Hey, Bill from SC Jedi, how are you? Hey, you had a recent article in Game Developer Design at Times about player stories, and you had a quote in there about finding better ways to foster and encourage better role play as an area of opportunity for the enterprising MMO designer. So I was wondering if you guys might have any systems or tools dedicated to role play in the game.
We have some. It's not an area of huge focus for us, and it's not something that we're prepared to talk about at this time. We have a few more things on the wall, crazy. But I think that the most important thing in terms of role-playing is being sure that you foster the player's imagination and you give them the tools to act out, to communicate, to gather, because ultimately the best role-playing comes from the imagination. And role-playing is also difficult because a lot of different people have very different definitions of what that means. We do recognize role players as an important market segment that we have to reach out, that we have to coddle. But yeah.
Hi, my name is Serge. I'm from SW Tor Life. I'd like to ask you about the last crafting and crew skill stuff was released back in December, and there's a lot of question marks there. So, but I'm not going to ask you like what those are. But I would like to get into a specific question within the released stuff. So, what kind of drops can we expect from the treasure hunting mission skill? So, like, do we get items, or do we get like crafting stuff, crafting components to craft like much more powerful stuff, or how does that work? In particular, like the treasure hunting mission skills.
That is a great question, and it is one that we've iterated on greatly from build to build. So I want to stress that the answer I give you today may be completely different the next build. The goal for the mission system was to make it something that was sort of catty-corner with crafting, where it sort of fed the crafting system a little bit, but it was really something that you could do if you didn't care about crafting. And so the mission system is designed to be much more highly variable in its reward system. So, for example, very oftentimes you will get nothing. Right, you'll actually send off your companion character and he'll return with nothing. Right now, what they're bringing back are companion gifts and some other sort of low impact things, and then every now and then they have a chance to bring in the blue and purple crafting materials that are used in order to make really high level crafting stuff. So the idea is that you then take this stuff and you put it on the auction house. We're still playing with the percentages of whatnot. In the last build that we did, we weren't entirely satisfied with how it felt. It didn't feel like it was worth the money, and we really wanted to work on giving you something that you can immediately use. We had the very first version of it, they pretty much just gave you high value grays that you can sell, and all it felt like they were doing was littering your inventory with useless stuff. So I anticipate this being a place of heavy iteration. One of the things that we want to be careful of is being sure that they don't become another faucet for gear that competes with all these other gear faucets that we already have. So, for example, if they start bringing back epic chest plates, they compete with the crafters in the light side, dark side system and the social system that we're already having to maintain a delicate balance to be sure that all these systems are important.
So, to conclude, it's actually for the crafters and getting them like materials for crafting great stuff.
That is one of the things they do bring back stuff that is the crafters will value.
Thank you very much.
I'm Tim Lapeer from Tor Talk. So we've heard how big the planets are going to be, and we've got our starships to travel through space. Is there a possible chance that we might see some kind of other transportation on the ground other than the taxi system?
Yes.
Sweet. Thanks.
Feel free not to run hog wild with that, because I'm sure that we would like to do a bigger Baldy or Friday update. But yeah, you can get mounts. They are expensive.
Are they going to be like class-based, possibly?